Welcome to the very first episode of Oracle Cloud Explained. This is the series where we break down Oracle features into simple, clear explanations with real-world examples and interactive quizzes to help you learn faster. In this video, we are walking through Oracle Cloud adjustments, understanding how adjustments factor in to the overall fixed assets lifecycle. So whether you're new to Oracle Cloud or just need a quick refresher, this video will give you a solid foundation, and stick around for the test at the end. So first of all, let's walk through the typical life cycle in Oracle Cloud, from the acquisition to depreciation and disposal. So this flowchart that we can see on the screen gives us a high-level view of the core asset management process, and then we can see how the adjustments fit into this process. So to begin with, we have to purchase the assets, and that's typically done through procurement or through payables. And this can be anything from office equipment to machinery, and once the invoice is matched and accounted, the asset is ready to be created. Then step 2, we need to create the asset. So to create the asset, we can do this either manually or using the mass additions process, and that pulls the data from Oracle Payables or Oracle Projects. And then step 3 is the transfer. So once we've created the assets, we can transfer those assets between departments, locations, or even different cost centers. And this helps ensure that there is some accurate tracking of asset ownership and also the location, because we need to know exactly where those assets are located. And this brings us on to the adjusting side. So it's important to understand that over time we may need to change the way the asset is recorded. And we call this adjusting assets, whether it's updating financial information or changing asset category, even modifying the quantity of the units or correcting errors. This step ensures that the asset is recorded with the most up-to-date information. And then we have asset disposal. So when an asset is no longer required, it moves to the disposal phase. And assets can be retired due to the fact that they are obsolete, they are sometimes sold, written off, and the system will track the gain and loss on the disposal. And then finally, to complete the life cycle, we need to calculate depreciation for all active assets. And this allows the organisation to record the latest adjustments associated with the depreciation of the asset. And we can see how the asset has depreciated in value and how the expenses associated with depreciation is reflected over time. So this cycle from purchasing to depreciation forms the backbone of asset management in Oracle Cloud, but also in other asset management systems. So this is the typical life cycle that you would expect for assets. And we can see that each step is interconnected, and we can also see how the adjustment of assets is an important aspect of this cycle. And in terms of the ways that we can complete asset adjustments in Oracle, we can see that the process is relatively straightforward. So first of all, we can carry out specific asset adjustments using the asset work areas in Oracle. So these are manual adjustments against specific assets. And next, we can perform a mass asset adjustment. So depending on what the adjustment is, we can collect assets that fall within specific criteria and perform adjustments on all of those assets in one go. And there is also the option to use spreadsheets as well, because we know that accountants love spreadsheets, so Oracle provides that ability. Now let's take a look at the types of adjustments. So what do we have first? We have the option to change financial details. So what does that mean? So if we look at the asset cost, the salvage value, or even the depreciation for the asset, sometimes that information needs to change slightly. So in order to go back and change that information to make sure that it's up to date and accurate, we can perform a change of those financial details in Oracle. Next, we can transfer source lines. So what does that mean? So what this means is we can move source lines between different types of assets. For example, if we think about payables, so within payables we have the option to capitalize expenses associated with asset items such as computers or laptops. So imagine we have an invoice in payables which is for a construction in process expense. So what we sometimes have to do is import that data into assets to be reflected as a CIP asset, but then we just want to move those source lines, so those invoice lines, between one CIP asset and another, or between a CIP asset and a capitalized asset. So it's about moving that source transaction from one asset to another. We can also add source lines as well. So if we take an existing asset that is already stored in the asset application, we can take a new source line that has recently been imported from payables using mass additions, and we can add that source line to the existing asset. So this is another type of asset adjustment. And we can also change source lines. So once again, we're focusing on source transactions coming from not just payables, but also projects as well. And this is where we take any manual source lines that have been entered in assets and we can make changes to that information. However, it's important to note that if those source lines come from payables or Oracle projects, then that information cannot be changed. And let's take a look at some other types of adjustments. So a popular type of adjustment is changing the asset category. So what does this look like and why is it needed? So sometimes when an asset is capitalized, it might be assigned a category just to get it into assets. But over time, asset accountants might realize that actually the way that the category is causing the asset to be depreciated may not be correct. So therefore, what we do is we use the category to determine certain defaults associated with the asset. So if the default is not correct on the category, then we can change the asset category on the asset. And this can be done to reflect the correct depreciation settings and other account rules. Now, another type of adjustment is suspending depreciation. So this type of adjustment, as it states here, is just to add a temporary stop on depreciation. And why do we typically suspend depreciation? So it could be because that particular asset has changed the way in which depreciation is being recorded, or perhaps we just need time to work out how to calculate depreciation on the asset due to some issues with depreciation previously. And then you have the option to resume depreciation, and this is where we restart depreciation for any asset that was previously suspended. And then finally, another adjustment is transferring the reserve. So this is where we take the accumulated depreciation, which is another term for reserve, and we move that depreciation from one group asset into another. So now that we've taken a look at the common types of asset adjustments that can be performed in Oracle Cloud, let's have a look at a quiz to see just how much you understood about the items that were discussed earlier. So there's 3 questions, and let's take a look at the first question. Which of the following is a valid reason to perform an asset adjustment in Oracle Cloud? Is it used for changing an asset's invoice number, updating depreciation information or correcting cost data, or archiving inactive assets? The answer is updating depreciation information or correcting cost data. So changing an asset's invoice number cannot be done. So as described earlier, source information coming from payables or projects cannot be changed, and this is because the information needs to be changed at source, which is not possible because once the invoice has been validated, once it's been approved and paid, that information is locked down. Now let's look at question 2. Which page in Oracle Cloud Asset Management do you use to make financial adjustments such as cost corrections or depreciation updates for an asset? Is it the Adjust Assets page? Is it Asset Details? Or is it the Book Details page? And the answer is Adjust Assets. So this is the page that you would use in order to complete most adjustments for assets. The final question, question 3, true or false? In Oracle Cloud Asset Management, asset adjustments can only be made within the accounting period when the asset was originally added. Is it true or false? And the answer is false. So asset adjustments can be made within accounting periods which are not necessarily the periods where the asset was added. And that completes our first video for the Oracle Cloud Explained series. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe, and also share with anyone who you feel may be interested in this video. So we'll see you next time for the next Oracle Cloud Explained video.